Double Indemnity, 1944. A housewife, a charming insurance salesman, and a deadly plan. What you see on screen was inspired by headlines that shocked the nation. Double Indemnity, directed by Billy Wilder and adapted from James M. Cain's novel, is widely regarded as the defining film noir of the 1940s. Starring Fred MacMurray and Barbara Stanwyck, the film introduced audiences to sharp dialogue, moral ambiguity, and the archetype of the seductive femme fatale. Its release was a critical and commercial success, cementing Wilder's reputation as one of Hollywood's most inventive directors. The film was based on a real-life crime from 1927. Ruth Snyder, a housewife in Queens, conspired with her lover, Henry Judd Gray, to murder her husband for insurance money. Snyder meticulously planned the killing, and the crime became national news when both were arrested. The case inspired James M. Cain's novel Double Indemnity, which Wilder then adapted for the screen. Billy Wilder commented on the story, "They aren't living the American dream, and they hope to correct that," capturing the moral decay and desperation at the heart of the crime. Contemporary reviews praised the film's tension and realism, noting how the dialogue made the audience complicit in the crime unfolding before them. The Night of the Hunter, 1955. A preacher with a smile that masks a sinister soul stalks children in the shadows. This nightmare on screen was drawn from true horrors. The Night of the Hunter, directed by Charles Laughton in his only feature film, is now considered a masterpiece of American cinema. Released in 1955, it blends expressionistic visuals, stark contrasts of light and shadow, and a haunting narrative style. Robert Mitchum stars as the menacing preacher, bringing a magnetic presence that terrified audiences while critics marveled at the film's poetic, dreamlike quality. Though it initially struggled at the box office, the film's reputation has grown steadily over the decades. The story is inspired by the crimes of Harry Powers, a real-life murderer in the early 1930s. Powers used Lonely Heart advertisements to lure women, ultimately killing 2 women and 3 children. His crimes shocked communities across West Virginia and Ohio, and he was executed in 1932. Laughton's film does not recreate the murders explicitly, but channels the chilling tension and fear that such a predator creates. Critics have noted the film's unsettling yet lyrical approach. One remarked, "The preacher is evil incarnate, but the cinematography makes us feel the world through the children's eyes." Laughton himself insisted the film was a fairy tale for grown-ups, using stylized horror to explore real human cruelty without sensationalism. While the City Sleeps, 1956. In the flickering newsroom lights, a killer walks among us, and the press races to catch him before another life is lost. While the City Sleeps, directed by Fritz Lang, is a 1950s thriller that combines noir style with the tension of a police procedural. Set in a bustling newspaper office, it explores ambition, competition, and the relentless pursuit of a story. The film stars Dana Andrews, Rhonda Fleming, and Vincent Price, and is praised for Lang's sharp visual style and suspenseful pacing. It captures the restless energy of mid-century urban life while maintaining the moral complexity of classic noir. The film was inspired by the crimes of William Hirons, known as the Lipstick Killer, who terrorized Chicago in the late 1940s. Hirons murdered 3 women, leaving cryptic messages at crime scenes, including one written in lipstick. His youth and the shocking nature of the killings fascinated both the public and the press. Lang's film does not depict Hirons directly, but borrows elements of his story: the fear, the headlines, and the manhunt that gripped the city. The Chicago Tribune at the time reported on the real case. A city holds its breath as detectives chase the elusive killer. Lang later noted that the tension in the newsroom and the moral dilemmas of journalists were just as compelling as the crimes themselves, making the story about both pursuit and ambition. The Hitchhiker, 1953. 2 friends take a simple road trip and pick up a stranger who will turn their journey into a nightmare. The Hitchhiker, directed by Ida Lupino, is one of Hollywood's most suspenseful noirs and the only major studio film directed by a woman in the 1950s. With a lean, tense narrative and only 3 main characters, the film transforms the open road into a claustrophobic trap. Lupino's direction emphasizes psychological terror over spectacle, and the film is celebrated for its realism and emotional intensity. The movie is based on the crimes of Billy Cook, who, in 1950, murdered 6 people while hitchhiking across the United States. Cook's terrifying spree included robbery, abduction, and murder. His distinctive physical appearance, an eyelid that never fully closed, was mirrored in the film's villain, lending an eerie authenticity to the story. Upon his arrest, Billy Cook reportedly said, "I hate everybody's guts, and everybody hates mine." Lupino's tight, tension-filled direction captured this psychological menace, using the empty highways and isolated landscapes to heighten suspense without resorting to graphic depiction of the crimes. Critics praised the film's raw intensity, noting that every shot seemed to trap the audience alongside the victims. Psycho, 1960. A quiet motel, a lonely innkeeper, and a story that forever changed how we see horror, rooted in a chilling real-life figure. Psycho, directed by Alfred Hitchcock, premiered in 1960 and became one of the most influential films in cinematic history. Starring Anthony Perkins as Norman Bates, the film is famous for its shocking twists, the iconic shower scene, and its exploration of psychological horror. Hitchcock's meticulous direction, combined with Bernard Herrmann's haunting score, created a tense, unforgettable atmosphere that captivated audiences and critics alike. Norman Bates's character was inspired by Ed Gein, a murderer and grave robber from Plainfield, Wisconsin, whose crimes in the 1950s shocked the nation. Gein exhumed corpses and fashioned trophies and keepsakes from human remains. While Hitchcock's adaptation of Robert Bloch's novel fictionalized the story, the influence of Gein's deeds is unmistakable, particularly in Bates's obsession with his mother and the eerie taxidermy motifs. Bloch, the author of the novel, once remarked that he was fascinated by how a seemingly ordinary man could hide such darkness beneath the surface. Hitchcock's careful crafting of suspense ensured that the horror felt psychological and unsettling rather than purely grotesque. Contemporary reviews praised the film's tension, noting its ability to terrify without relying on explicit violence. The Boston Strangler, 1968. 13 women strangled in their homes and a city gripped by fear. The story that became both a real-life nightmare and a Hollywood thriller. Directed by Richard Fleischer, The Boston Strangler was released in 1968 and dramatized the hunt for one of America's most infamous serial killers. Starring Tony Curtis and Henry Fonda, the film blends procedural investigation with psychological insight, exploring the terror that gripped Boston in the early 1960s. The film was noted for its restrained portrayal of violence, focusing on tension and suspense rather than graphic depiction. The film is based on the crimes of Albert DeSalvo, who confessed to strangling 13 women in Boston between 1962 and 1964. Though controversy remains over whether DeSalvo committed all the murders, his confession and the widespread fear his crimes caused were well documented. The case highlighted flaws in investigative methods and stirred public debate about criminal psychology and law enforcement practices. Roger Ebert observed that while the film dramatized the events, it handles the murders in a restrained and intelligent way, avoiding sensationalism and focusing instead on the chilling impact on the city and its citizens. The real-life headlines from Boston newspapers echoed this fear. City on edge as strangler terrorizes women. The Town That Dreaded Sundown, 1976. A masked killer prowls a quiet town under the moonlight, turning ordinary streets into a corridor of terror. Directed by Charles B. Pierce, The Town That Dreaded Sundown blends horror and true crime storytelling. Released in 1976, the film adopts a semi-documentary style, using narration and grainy visuals to recreate the tense atmosphere of a small town gripped by fear. It was praised for its innovative approach, combining suspense, realism, and a chilling soundtrack that amplified the sense of unease. The movie is based on the Texarkana Moonlight Murders of 1946. An unidentified assailant, dubbed the Phantom Killer, attacked 8 residents in Texarkana, Texas, killing 5. The case shocked the nation and remains officially unsolved. Pierce's film recreates the tension and terror experienced by the town, using fictionalized names and events while staying faithful to the mood of panic that gripped the real community. Pierce employed narration by Vern Steierman to give the film a documentary feel, reinforcing the sense that the story could have happened to anyone, anywhere. Critics later noted how the film blurs the line between horror and history, creating a palpable fear without relying on gratuitous violence. Badlands, 1973. A young couple drifts across the Midwest, leaving a trail of destruction behind them, a journey inspired by real-life tragedy. Terrence Malick's Badlands, released in 1973, is a haunting, poetic exploration of youthful alienation and violence. Starring Martin Sheen and Sissy Spacek, the film stands out for its lyrical cinematography, naturalistic landscapes, and understated performances. Unlike conventional crime dramas, Malick focuses on mood and character, turning the open road into a canvas of innocence, rebellion, and impending doom. The film is loosely based on the crimes of Charles Starkweather and his girlfriend Carol Ann Fugate in 1958. The couple embarked on a killing spree across Nebraska and Wyoming, murdering 11 people. While Badlands fictionalizes events and names, it captures the restless energy, fatalism, and tragic inevitability of their real-life crimes. Critics have praised Malick's ability to blend beautiful landscapes with violent undertones. One noted, "Malick transforms horror into poetry, showing us not just the acts, but the emptiness and detachment that lead to them." The film emphasizes the alienation and impulsive nature of youth, rather than sensationalizing the murders themselves. The Honeymoon Killers, 1970. A lonely heart's ad promises love, but behind the letters lies deception, greed, and murder, a deadly romance rooted in chilling reality. Directed by Leonard Castle, The Honeymoon Killers premiered in 1970 and immediately stood apart from the polished thrillers of its era. Rather than relying on stylized glamour or dramatic spectacle, Castle's film is stark, unflinching, and intensely focused on realism. Starring Shirley Stoller and Tony LoBianco, the story follows a nurse and her partner who exploit vulnerable women for financial gain, gradually escalating to murder. Castle's minimalist approach, raw performances, and focus on psychological tension earned the film critical praise and secured its place as a landmark in crime cinema, influencing later filmmakers drawn to true crime storytelling. The film is based on the notorious crimes of Martha Beck and Raymond Fernandez, infamously known as the Lonely Hearts Killers. In the late 1940s, the couple lured women through personal ads, offering romance, companionship, and promises of marriage. Once trust was gained, they would defraud and, in some cases, kill their victims. Their crimes caused nationwide shock, drawing attention to the dangers of blind trust and the vulnerabilities of lonely hearts. Castle's adaptation stays faithful to the emotional and psychological dimensions of these crimes, showing not only the physical acts of violence, but also the manipulation, emotional control, and moral corruption at the heart of the duo's relationship. Castle reflected on his approach, saying, "The Wrong Man, 1956. A man's life is turned upside down, not by his own actions, but by a case of mistaken identity that feels like a nightmare come true." Directed by Alfred Hitchcock, The Wrong Man premiered in 1956 and remains one of the director's most unique and grounded works. Unlike the suspenseful thrillers for which Hitchcock is famous, this film is almost entirely based on real events, giving it a documentary-like tone and a chilling sense of authenticity. Henry Fonda stars as Manny Balistrero, a mild-mannered musician living in New York City. Fonda's calm, understated performance allows viewers to experience the bewilderment, fear, and helplessness of an ordinary man suddenly thrust into extraordinary circumstances. Hitchcock's restrained direction avoids sensationalism, focusing instead on the subtle psychological pressures of the story, lost time, anxious interrogations, and the looming possibility of imprisonment. The film closely follows the real-life experience of Christopher Emmanuel Balistrero, a musician falsely accused of a series of robberies in the early 1950s. Despite having no connection to the crimes, Balistrero was arrested, held in custody, and subjected to the intense scrutiny of police and the press. His ordeal was later chronicled in a detailed Life magazine article, which Maxwell Anderson adapted into the screenplay. Hitchcock's version highlights not only the legal challenges Balistrero faced, but also the emotional toll on his family, the disruption to his career, and the lingering anxiety that comes with being unjustly accused. Hitchcock emphasized realism in the storytelling, stating, "I wanted the audience to feel the fear of being innocent yet accused, to live it alongside the character."